Good evening. Welcome everybody to Chicago Acapella's live chat with Terri Hemmert. And good evening, Terri. So
Hello,
good to
Matt.
see you.
Well, Matt, why don't you introduce yourself? I mean, you're the
Oh, right. I'm Matt
yeah.
Greenberg. I'm the executive director of Chicago Acapella, and I'm here with the real star of the show, Terri Hemmert,
Oh,
our wonderful
thanks.
guest.
Thanks. Matt can sing too.
Yeah, I can sing a little
He's
bit.
not just a, CEO kind of guy. Very
So
talented.
tonight we're going to talk about the history of rock and soul, the concert that you did with us about 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, as well as
Okay.
your class by the same name. And we'll get to sample some of the highlights from that concert, including some of your wonderful narration that kind of put all of that music in context. So we're going to have some fun and hear some great music. And but I thought maybe we should start by explaining how this even happened, because it's a bit unusual for a rock and roll DJ to be hanging out with classical choral singers.
Not
But
that. Well, my mom was classical
yeah,
choral director, so I've been doing this since I was 4.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you remember how this all started? How we kind of met and
Yeah.
started working
Well,
with each other?
yeah, you took me to Ann Sather's for breakfast, and that won me over right away. No, actually, I did a Q&A once after your Bach and Beatles, whatever concert a long time ago. And so we knew each other.
Right.
And then you approached me saying that, I've been teaching this class at Columbia College now since about 1981. I've been teaching there since like 74, 75, around then. I wasn't keeping a diary, but, the mid 70s. And then I went with an idea because I said people going into radio that don't know anything about music. That's why radio is so awful sometimes, because you have people don't know about music or care about music or know about music's role in our culture and our politics and everything. So I pitched an idea for a 1 semester, 2-hour class, and now it's a 2 semester, 3-hour class, and I still don't have enough time to tell them everything I want to tell them. So I've been doing that since 81, and I'm still doing it, still Monday nights teaching. And we just did disco a couple weeks ago. I thought of you guys because our part 2 of this, we got into disco and even had a disco ball on our last concert
Right.
at Lincoln Hall. But you approached me and said that you would like to do a class covering some of the artists and songs that I cover in my class and have me write a script where it'd be like I'm giving a class lecture. The only difference being that you guys don't have to take a test or write a term paper or do an oral report. I'm a stickler for, making them work. But I was, of course, excited because I love you guys so much. I've been going to your concerts forever, and I love a cappella singing. I've done that myself, but my idea of great a cappella is like William Byrd. I want to,
Yeah.
I want to do, and sometimes contemporary a cappella groups are just too cute for the room.
Yeah.
And I never felt that way, even when you did more contemporary programs, that there was a musicianship there that I really admired, and a sense of humor, and a sense of not being funny when that's appropriate. And
Well,
you guys are so versatile.
I just remember too, when we first met you, probably was in 2009 for that Baroque and Beatles
Yeah.
concert. We were looking for a Beatles expert, which we knew you were.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't know that we were also getting like a choir nerd, basically a choir, like we didn't know that you were going to have that connection to us too. And it was just this sort of amazing surprise. But as you said, your mom was a choir director, and
Yeah.
you grew up listening to probably that, if not singing in choirs,
Everything.
right?
Oh yeah, I was singing in school choirs and all that. And finally, when I got to high school, I could join my mom's community chorus, and I couldn't wait because I used to hang out at the rehearsals, and all these adults in this little town in Ohio were like rock stars to me. I just love them. I still remember. I'm still in touch with one of them, actually.
Oh, gosh.
She's in her 90s now, and we talk on the phone frequently. So it really had an impact on it. And it also taught me that music builds community. And this is something that really appealed to me at an early age. And one of the reasons I love radio so much, because, you think of just somebody sitting in the studio talking and playing songs, but I have found over the years that we have a community, that we have people that grew up listening to us at XRT, and we've gotten them through 9/11. I was on the air the morning after John Lennon was shot. We're always there to help them process all this stuff. And now I do a lot of that on Facebook. I do a daily post and been writing about a lot of serious things as well as, fun stuff too. But it's all tied around music.
Yeah.
In fact, Wednesdays is Classical Music Day.
I know.
And I really love challenging the people that give me the opportunity to challenge them to even get into some contemporary things, some difficult Mahler vocals music, to songs about death and dying and all kinds of things like that. It's not just like a little chamber music thing you play at brunch, but I love that. My mom's a teacher too, and I love teaching. I love music, using music to teach everything, to teach, like in our class, and it'll come up tonight in this program, that we studied the civil rights movement in the 60s, because you can't separate that from the music. The Vietnam War, the baby boom, all the social changes that were happening, it's all there in the music. And the music influenced it, and it was influenced by what was going on. It was a symbiotic relationship. And I love getting the kids to go deeper and find out why music is so important. It's not just something you listen to or have on your, So that appeals to me a great deal. And also getting people to go outside their boundaries, like working with Chicago a cappella, and doing classic encounter for like 15 years at the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Columbia. I love the opportunity to get people to think outside the box and to listen to something that's beyond their comfort zone. Because I'm always learning too. I'm always get myself to listen to something I'd never heard before. Yeah. Or like the other night, one of my students said that he was into Africana music, and I said, give me a couple artists. So that's on my list of things to do, to check out those, because I learned from them.
Yeah. You got to keep that musical curiosity going, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into some music. What do you say?
I don't know if I can jump so much, but
glide into some music.
I have some new pains over the past years. I can't wait to get back to PT. So
we all do. Absolutely. Okay, right. We'll all jump together.
Okay, yeah.
We'll start out. This was not the very first thing in the concert, but it was near the beginning of the concert where you sort of started telling us about these various elements coming together and how sort of the pre-rock music sort of came about, and you set it up beautifully. So let's take a look.
A few years before disc jockeys used the term rock and roll, Louis Jordan was rocking and swinging all at the same time. He was setting the table for the wit of Chuck Berry, the sax solos of R&B, the music videos that always featured at least one good-looking woman. And I give him credit for being the godfather of hip-hop. In his song, Beware, he raps. Seriously, in 1940-something, he was digging into a spoken word tradition backed by his swinging band and giving dating tips. All the elements you need. The brother, seriously, was rapping. It was around the same time that the Mills Brothers from my hometown of Piqua, Ohio, my original Fab Four, they sold a ton of records to people who couldn't get enough of their beautiful harmonies. They influenced all the great male doo-wop groups, from the Five Satins to Thornton Township High School's The Dells. From Motown's Smokey Robinson and the Miracles to the Temptations. We won't blame them for the boy bands that followed. Not their fault. Just like we won't blame Louis Jordan's music videos for MTV. Back when M stood for music. In the early 60s, when the original pioneers of rock and roll were on the skids, the girl groups kept things interesting. Songwriters like Carole King and producers like Phil Spector were turning out some great songs for groups like the Chiffons, the Shirelles, the Chantels, the Ronettes, the Crystals, the Exciters, and the Shangri-Las. Attitude. Ooh, they had attitude. And don't you love the names of those groups? They're so romantic, just special, magical. And a very young Frankie Lyman with his group, the Teenagers, broke through with a fresh new sound that years later would influence a young Michael Jackson from Gary, Indiana.
I'm going to buy a paper doll that I can call my own. A doll that other fellas cannot see. And then the flirty, flirty guys with their flirty, flirty eyes will have to flirt with dollies that are when I am home at night, she will be waiting. She'll be the truest doll in all the world. I'd rather have a paper doll that I can call my own than have a fickle-minded real live girl. Da 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 da. Why do fools fall in love? Why do birds sing so gay? And clockers awake a break of day. Why do they fall in love? Ooh, why does the rain fall from above? Why do fools fall in love? Why do they fall in love? Love is a losing game. Love can't be ashamed. I know a fool you see, for that fool is me. Tell me why. Tell me why. Why do they fall in love? Why do they fall in love? Why do they fall in? Will you still love me tomorrow?
He's so fine, wish he were mine. That handsome boy over there, the one with the wavy hair. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna make him mine. He's the Andy of all the girls, it's just a matter of time. He's so fine, gotta be mine, sooner or later. I hope it's not later. We gotta get together. better. I just can't wait, I just can't wait to be held in his arms.
I'm going to buy a paper doll that I can sew. A doll so that other fellows cannot stop.
Why do fools fall in love?
'Cause I love
I
you
just
so.
can't wait, I just can't wait.
Promise I'll never
Sooner or later,
let you go.
matter of time.
Love is a losing game. Love can be a shame. I know a fool you see, for that fool is me. You said that I'm the only one. When I'm home at night, and
He's so mine, gotta be mine.
she'll be the truest star. Although
Love can be a
I'd rather have a paper doll that I can call my own. Why do fools, why do they fall in? Ba-ba-doom, ba-ba-doom, ba-ba-doo-doo. Why do fools fall in love? Crazy.
There
Woo!
you go.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
I miss them so much. I love them. In fact, after we did those 2 series of concerts, I wanted to go on the road with them. I was going to quit my day job. I mean, I just,
It would
and
have
I
been
think,
fun.
you know, we were talking about, and this hit me while I was listening to them. And it was really nice to, by the way, to listen to them and not be nervous about what I had to do next in the
Huh.
program. But I think, you know, I was talking about how much I like them as opposed to some of the contemporary a cappella stuff. And they're incredible musicians. A lot of them sing classical and everything. And Patrick, let's
Yeah.
give Patrick a shout out
Yeah.
because his arrangements are brilliant. I mean, they're not hokey like some
Yeah.
a cappella stuff.
So this is unusual, I think, for us in that every single song on this concert was arranged by the same person. They were all custom arranged by our lovely music director emeritus, who was the director of this show, Patrick Sinizich. And I want to talk a little later about how you guys came up with how to do that. But the whole thing was
Yeah.
based, as you said, on your class at Columbia.
Yeah.
And I know you said you've been doing it for a long time, but tell us a little more about that and what's it like to be in your class? What is it, just sitting around listening to music? Because it sounds like it would be a total blast.
Well, you'd have to ask the kids what it's like because
Okay.
they might have a different idea than I. No,
Yeah.
but we do watch a lot of music. And when I first started teaching it, I picked out a textbook for it, which we still use. It's out of print, but they can get it online for like less than it costs for the postage because
Right.
but I think I might buy 20 copies just in case they're going to run out someday.
Yeah.
But I can't find another book that covers all this stuff and also covers the political climate and the technology changes and the demographic, you know, the whole baby boom thing, you know, that had a big impact on the birth of rock and roll. But we watch a lot of music. But when I first started teaching it, I went through and made a list of songs from the textbook that I wanted to highlight, and I made cassette tapes. And so I would lecture and then play some of the cassette tape. And then I started bringing in VHS tapes. And then I started bringing in DVDs. You can imagine the prep time it took to get all this together, and even catalogs so I knew where everything was in my collection. And now I have a TA, a wonderful ex-student, sit there and type in the address and get it on YouTube. Plus we can post it and the kids can watch it later on their own too, and the whole thing if they want to and to review. But you can't teach music without hearing music. So
Yeah.
but I just put on a show for them. I do what we did in that concert. I tell them all the stuff in between, and like Louis Jordan that we referred to, but that's an artist that a lot of people aren't familiar with, especially like a 19-year-old college student. But I always say my life's ambition is to turn out 20 new Louis Jordan fans because he was so important and so overlooked. One night I came into class and one of my students had a bag from Reckless Records, and he was all excited to show me what he found. And it was a 2 album set vinyl, the best of Louis Jordan. And he was so excited to find that. And I said, my work is done, my missionary work, and just to get them to listen to old country music, to appreciate Hank Williams Sr. and Patsy Cline and people like that. And just to start them. Because what I can teach them is just the beginning for them, but it's a way to push them out of their comfort zone and get them to crave listening to music or be challenged by something they think they don't like. Like I said, when I was in college, I hate to say when I was your age, but when I was in college, I said I loved everything except country music and opera. Well, now I love country music and opera because I let myself get it. Jazz. I didn't know anything about jazz when I first went to college, and evolved that way. And I'm still trying to. There's certain things I'm never going to like because we all have personal, and there's some things that aren't worthy of liking. But but I'm always pushing myself to hear something I haven't heard before and try to get into it and learn something. Like my stuff I do on Facebook every night, the song of the day. Even if it's a song I know inside and out for my whole life, I always do a little searching around the internet just to see if I can learn something new about it. And the first one I did was Louis Armstrong, because that's where we start in my class, Louis Armstrong. And I learned something about Louis Armstrong that opened up a whole new, I didn't know he did an album with Dave Brubeck in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
And it was there was a song that was perfect for Dr. King Day. And because it was about is God black? Because God made me and I'm black and I'm supposed to be created in the image and likeness of God. Does that make me black? And then, then why did God make white people? Is God white? Is God a zebra? It was fascinating.
Wow.
And I'd never heard it before. And so I learned that while I was teaching. And that's what I love about teaching, because I take myself to school.
Well, and, I can imagine working with these young people, and they probably get younger every year. As we get older, they get younger.
Yeah.
But, every new generation feels like their music invented the cool new thing, and nobody's ever done anything like this before. And sometimes, of course, there are revolutionary artists and sort of breakthroughs. But I remember learning, in the process of putting this concert together, that everything that I thought was sort of invented out of whole cloth, in the 50s or 60s, it was, something happened before, like even in the 20s or 30s or 40s, that sort of pointed to that.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's this evolution.
And you could spend your whole life studying that. I'm always learning stuff about it. And it's really, it makes you a curious person, not curious like people look at you and go, you're curious, but it makes you seek out different things and open. And I always think if you open yourself up to music, you open yourself up to other things too. I think that's a process where you open up the diversity of people, to different ideas, to respect different ideas. And even if you don't like country music, you can like somebody that likes country music. Right. And I told my students, because we study racism, I said, if you don't understand race relations, you don't understand American music, and not just black music, but both. I mean, because we're all in the same boat here. But I said Dr. King owed a great debt to baseball and music, rock and roll and soul music, because he knew, being brilliant like he was, that you need to legislate this stuff, but you also need to convert people. He was a man of the cloth, so he was all over conversion, but he needed to convert hearts and minds to not only understanding and accepting, but to loving. And I tell my students, if you love Ella Fitzgerald, or when I was growing up, when I loved Roy Campanella, the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I remember reading a book probably in 5th grade about his life, and I had no idea what he went through. I just knew him as a superstar. And in fact, his daughter is one of my best friends. We went to college together. We're still in touch all the time. And I told her, I said, reading about your dad was my introduction to institutional racism. I didn't know anything about it. What's a little kid in a small town in Ohio know about institutional anything?
Right.
And it taught me. And then when you love these people, when you love Ella Fitzgerald and you find out that she could play a beautiful ballroom in a hotel, but she couldn't get a meal there or spend the night there or even go to the bathroom there. I mean, it's just, that makes you furious.
Right.
And I think it gets to your heart. It's not just your head, it's your heart. And you think, that's not right.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
I need to do something about that because I love Ella Fitzgerald.
Right. Yeah.
And I think and that does that for so many other things. It just connects us. And I remember going to the symphony. Yo-Yo Ma did a Silk Road thing, and it was a Syrian music, which was Iraq basically. And it was right before we started bombing the crap out of Iraq. And I was sitting there thinking, if only we could get world leaders to sit down and listen to this music and look at people who look like the Iraqis that we were about to bomb, that maybe, just maybe, we could figure out a different way to resolve our conflicts.
Yeah.
I think the arts are very important for that reason.
Absolutely. I agree.
Well, I got on a soapbox.
I like that soapbox. Okay. Can I get an amen?
Hey, I can't hear anybody.
They're all saying it.
Okay.
No, well, you were talking about country music a minute ago, and that reminded me, we did actually a whole medley of country songs on this concert. But after that, the one I'd like to sort of transition to now is sort of a conglomeration, I guess, or a combination of some elements of country and early rock, which is the rockabilly stuff. So let's take a look and listen to that.
Okay.
All the planets were aligned for the birth of rock and roll. Now, I forget everything I learned about protons and neutrons, but I imagine blues, folk, country and western, and gospel music colliding and exploding like an atom bomb. Plus, you had an extra large generation of teenagers, thanks to the World War II baby boom. My students love how I explain how that happened. And the red-hot economy after the war, that led to the expansion of the middle class. A lot of kids with an allowance to spend, and a car, and a radio in the car, a jukebox at the soda shop, and a 45 RPM record player in their bedrooms. Man, just in time for Elvis Presley to turn the world upside down. You combine early rock and roll and hillbilly music, and you get rockabilly. Music that was created to upset parents and preachers. They did a darn good job of that, too. Elvis wiggling his hips on network TV. They'd show him from the waist up. Crazy. And Jerry Lee Lewis singing about goodness gracious, great balls of fire. The parents are freaking out. Don and Phil Everly, and they really were brothers, made the amazing country harmonies of the Louvin brothers swing with hits like Wake Up Little Susie. And a disc jockey named the Big Bopper took some time off work to tour with Buddy Holly to promote his hit, Chantilly Lace. The teenagers turned on the TV to watch Dick Clark's American Bandstand and listen to the Moondog, Alan Freed, on the radio, playing what he called rock and roll, which was actually a euphemism for sex. I'm not going to draw you a picture, just figure it out, okay? And Alan Freed crossed racial lines on his shows, and the kids didn't want to hear Pat Boone anymore. They demanded the real deal. Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino. Now, when Fats sang, I found my thrill on Blueberry Hill, you kind of had an idea what he meant by thrill, what that was all about, you know? When Pat Boone sang the same song, it was define thrill for us, Pat. We're not getting it. It was a musical and cultural revolution that even led to congressional hearings. And as Mr. Freed said, rock and roll is here to stay.
Chantilly lace and a pretty face, a ponytail hanging down, a wiggle and a walk and a giggle and a talk. Lord, they're gonna make the world go round. Ain't nothing in the world like a big-eyed girl to make me act so fun. I spend my doggone money. I feel real loose like a long-necked goose, like a, oh baby, that's what I like. Ain't nothing in the world like a big-eyed girl to make me act so fun. I spend my doggone money. I feel real loose like a long-necked goose, like a, oh baby, that's what I like. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. We've both been sound asleep. Wake up, little Susie, and the movie's over. It's 4 o'clock and we're in trouble. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Well, what are we gonna tell your mama? What are we gonna tell your pop? What are we gonna tell our friends when they say, ooh la la? You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain. Too much love drives a man insane. You broke my will, but what a thrill. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. I left your love cause I thought it was funny. You come along and move, honey. I changed my mind, this love is fine. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. I'm gonna love you like a lover should. You're the money, so the show. I'm the best one now, don't you step on my blue suede shoes. We can do anything but stay on my blue suede shoes.
Well, you can knock me down, step on my face, slander my name all over the place. Do anything that you wanna do, and honey, lay all that shoes on you. Step on my blue suede shoes. Well, you can do anything but stay on my blue suede shoes. But I gotta do blue suede shoes. Blue suede shoes.
When it's one for the money, two for the show, you get paid, but I don't care so. But I do we can do anything but stay over my blue suede
Oh, you are such an Elvis. Oh my God.
That was my one and only Elvis impression, I think, that I've ever done.
I have seen Elvis impersonators, but never one as cute as you.
Yeah, I don't
was
think you can make a
adorable.
living at that. But
That was great. Oh my God. See
that
what I
was
mean by
fun.
arrangements? That arrangement. Oh, that was so good. I mean,
And I know when you and Patrick, thought about
mhm.
how to boil, basically 40 plus years of music down
Right.
into one
Had
concert.
to whittle it down, yeah.
That cannot have been easy. Do you remember what that process was like, or how you kind of crafted the show with him or for him?
Well, I went through all my class notes and made a really extra long list of stuff, and then we kind of whittled it down. But trying to get the variety and try to hit on the different genres that we do in the class, that was really important.
Right.
But I still can't get past your Elvis impersonation. Oh my God. Oh, you also did a blues song too, because we covered blues, and you sang
right.
Sweet Home Chicago, and you rocked it.
That was Joe. Joe sang Sweet Home Chicago.
Oh, didn't you sing? Wait a minute, what?
I was got your mojo working.
That's it. Okay. Well, it was
Yeah.
a Chicago blues song, but
You know,
yeah.
Muddy Waters. Aren't I
Yeah,
the perfect,
yeah.
obvious choice for a Muddy Waters song?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
obviously.
did get our mojo working too. You were great. Oh my God. I'd pay money to see that.
Well, I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the things that was so fun about this concert. We talked about it a little bit before, but the fact that there are all these different genres, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, the concert's called The History of Rock and Soul. So you sort of think, I'm going to hear a bunch of rock songs. But, you know, we were able to kind of use your, you know, your syllabus to kind of build up to it. And before we ever got to anything that sounded like rock, there was,
Right.
you know, a swing number, there was a country medley, there was gospel and
Oh
jazz
yeah.
and blues,
Yeah, we
country.
spent a lot of time with that stuff. Well, my students, once they asked me, said, "Are we going to start with Jimi Hendrix?" And I said, "We end with Jimi Hendrix the first semester because it goes through the '60s." But we start with Louis Armstrong,
Yeah.
and we spent a lot of time on gospel because gospel is a very essential part. When I go down the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, if you're looking for me, look in the gospel tent. The chances are I'm
Wow.
there because that's where you hear the roots of soul music, especially. And what Ray Charles did, Ray Charles taking us from rhythm and blues to soul music, was that gospel sound, was playing that piano. And I've Got a Woman used to be I've Got a Savior.
Oh.
Which really upset the preachers. You weren't supposed to listen to secular music. That was the devil's music. Yeah. Yeah. And, but we get into all that because that teaches you not only about the music itself, but it teaches you about the culture, you know, how Mahalia Jackson wasn't allowed to sing secular music ever. And she still got criticized because they heard a blues influence in her gospel music. You know, I mean, it was really a tightrope walk.
As if there was this big wall between those two kinds of music, when in fact it was pretty much, you know, the same or very similar.
Yeah, yeah. And the blues songs, they say I go out Saturday night and spend my paycheck and drink and womanize and blah, blah, blah. And then Sunday I go to church. You know, it's in a lot of blues lyrics. They name it. They say, yeah, I'm a sinner on Saturday night, but I'll see you at church tomorrow morning.
Right.
Yeah. And then the next week, same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's a really, to me, music is so reflective of our lives and our times. And like, you know, for me as a person that did a lot of classical music, doing a requiem, like a Mozart or Fauré requiem, put me in a totally different time and place. And it helped me understand how people saw these life-changing things and how they process it. And one of my favorite works is the Song of the Earth by Mahler. I just turned a couple former students onto that the other day because, you know, just hearing somebody sing Ever, that forever, and then fade out, and then to know that that's a song somebody's singing to explain why they're leaving and not coming back because it's part of nature, and nature, spring goes on forever and forever and forever, with and without. Well, George Harrison wrote, life goes on within you and without you. And we learn all these things through music and how different generations and different centuries processed all the stuff that keeps us up at night.
Yeah. That sounds like another Chicago a cappella concert, you know, connecting not just back to the 20s, but like, let's go further back and connect that all. Cause you're right. It's all connected.
Yeah, sure. That's what I do with Classic Encounter at the Symphony Center, that there's no book I can't get, or website I can't get on and say, okay, how was Mahler an influence on rock and roll music? Nobody's written about that, really.
Right.
And maybe Beethoven or Bach, but then you know, but by searching and finding stuff, and by just listening to music and making connections in my head, and then making stuff up, you know, it's like a little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And I'll hear a connection that I wouldn't have thought of before.
Absolutely.
And it's very creative and very scary too, because I wonder, am I going to find something to fill a hole in our program?
Right.
But we always fill it. But like with Mahler, I found a bunch of German college students playing a Mahler, something from the Fifth Symphony, on Heineken beer bottles. You know, they had different amounts of beer in each bottle, so they had their own designated note. And by playing that at the beautiful ballroom on the second floor at Symphony Center, all these people that are coming who think I'm an idiot, I don't know anything about classical music. Who the heck is Mahler? Blah, blah, blah. I've heard of Beethoven, but who's Mahler? When they hear that and they laugh, they feel comfortable. They feel, I belong here.
Yeah.
There's a place for me here. And that's what I love to do, is welcome people into other worlds.
Oh, yeah.
To welcome classical music fans into the world of gospel, and then take a rock and roll fan and say, this was Jimi Hendrix lived for a while in London in Haydn's old apartment. It was a Haydn or Handel. It was one of the two H's.
Yeah.
And he was so excited. Oh, it was Handel. He was so excited he went to a record store that day and bought all the Handel albums he could find so he could listen to his music. Jimi Hendrix listening to Handel.
Okay, Handel and Hendrix. There's the Chicago Acapella concert.
Yeah. Call me. I'm free.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So for me, it's fun to make those connections and sort of, make them up. It's not like I'm making up fiction, but I'm making connections. I'm finding it's like a scavenger hunt,
Yeah.
And then I learn stuff too.
Well, I should mention that, we're talking about, sort of all the things that we're not showing in this concert. We didn't have time to show the entire concert tonight, but I should mention that the entire concert, including all of your wonderful narration, we're making it available to our wonderful virtual subscribers through the end of March. So, and it's like a short mini version of the first semester of your class without the papers, right? And
yes, right. No quizzes.
Yeah. So if anybody, would like to, if you're not a subscriber and you'd like to actually see the entire thing with all of Terri's narrations, we encourage you to look into a subscription. And in fact, we've got a special, oh, there it is. Good. We've got a special little deal for you. You can get it for $20 if you use this discount code. So we encourage you to do that and enjoy the rest of the concert, but also enjoy all the other stuff that we're putting out. We're putting out tons of videos this year because that's kind of all we can do during COVID. We're doing a podcast, other online events. So we do have actually a lot of stuff going on, and we'd love to share it all with everybody. So please do check that out. Well, this is time for actually, I have to confess, this is my favorite part of the concert.
Really?
Which
one is this?
Well, it's you start out talking about all the independent record labels that are really responsible for the music even getting heard at all. And then you talk about kind of the most important independent record label, which is everybody's favorite. So let's take a watch.
Okay.
The major record companies at the time did not get rock and soul until they saw the dollar signs. Columbia, RCA Victor, Decca, Capitol, they all thought it was kids' music, and kids don't have money, right? Well, we might not have gotten this amazing music if it wasn't for the small independent labels that tapped into their local talent pool. Right here in Chicago on Record Row on South Michigan Avenue, we had Chess, Mercury, VJ, and Brunswick Records, and Delmark was releasing great blues and jazz. Memphis had Sun and Stax. LA had Specialty, Imperial, and Modern. Atlantic Records started small in New York City and grew to be one of the greats. There was King and Federal Records in Cincinnati, Cameo and Parkway in Philadelphia, Minute Records in New Orleans. They recorded early rock and roll and rockabilly, honky-tonk, R&B, Cajun, jazz, blues, and discovered a lot of artists that might not have been noticed otherwise. Ray Charles on Atlantic, Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley on Chess, James Brown on King, Elvis Presley on Sun. And these labels were owned by the least likely gentlemen who often paid off the DJs with cash and hookers. It was before my time. And I never saw it. Just read about it in a book somewhere. Well, these label owners, too, delivered the records from the trunks of their cars. It was pretty primitive. But let's not forget the Motor City, Motown, founded by Berry Gordy, and put Detroit, Michigan on the musical map in the 1960s. It was one of the few black-owned labels and one of the most successful of all the indie labels. Berry worked in an auto plant in Detroit, and he started this label, studios and office, with a house on Grand Boulevard. But he set it up like an auto factory, where the car moves through a production line, where everybody does their one thing, and then voila, you've got a car. You know, at Motown, they did the same thing. They had the writers who wrote the songs, and then the producers who teamed up with the singers, and the Funk Brothers, one of the best studio bands in the country. The artists recorded the songs, they went to dance lessons and charm school. It was a whole process. Motown took kids from the projects of Detroit and turned them out as classy, well-dressed, sophisticated performers. Just look at before and after photos of the Supremes. Motown also gave us the Marvelettes, Martha and the Vandellas, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, the Temptations, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, the Four Tops, Mary Wells, the Jackson Five, Junior Walker and the All-Stars, and the list goes on. It was the sound of young America, Hitsville, USA. Motown got us dancing in the streets.
Wait, oh yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait, Mr. Postman. Please, Mr. Postman, look and see. Oh, yeah. Is there a letter in your bag for me? 'Cause it's been a mighty long time since I heard from this postman tonight. There must be some word today from my postman so far away. Please, Mr. Postman, look and see. Is there a letter for me? You better wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Deliver the letter, the sooner the better. Ooh, baby love, my baby love, my baby love, ooh, baby love. But all you do is treat me bad, break my heart and leave me sad. Don't know what did I do wrong to make you stay away so long. 'Cause baby love, my baby love, been breaking up, breaking up. Instead of breaking up, let's try to kiss and making up. Don't throw our love away. Baby, don't you say, don't throw our love away.
I bet you wonder how I knew about your plans to make me blue. There's so much about you knew before. Between the two of the stars, you knew I loved you more. It took me by surprise, I must say, when I found out yesterday. Don't you know that I heard to the grapevine? How much longer would you be mine? Oh, I heard it to the grapevine. Ooh, I'm just about to lose my mind.
Honey, honey, heard it through the grapevine. How much longer would you be my baby? Come now, around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat? Summer's here and the time is right for dancing in the street. They're dancing in Chicago.
Oh my gosh, you guys
Fun,
are
right?
so good. So good. And let me put in a plug here for your recording of What's Going On,
Oh,
which is
thanks.
available on YouTube now.
Yeah.
I showed it to my class the other night because I hope they are. In fact, if you are in my class and you listen to this, let me know and you get brownie points. But no, because I wanted them to hear you guys, and we studied that song earlier in the semester. Plus, I love the fact that you use your alumni of your high school singers.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the missions of Chicago a cappella that really draws me to you guys, beyond the fun that we have, that you mentor and coach and do all kinds of opportunities for high school kids.
Yeah.
And also like the Mexican music program, introducing kids to music from Mexico.
Yep.
I mean, it's just fantastic. And you had some of your alumni from your high school kids sing with these other singers, and you pulled it off. And as I approach the 100 years old, I figured, okay, all the charity work I've done in my life, because that's the way I was brought up. My parents instilled that in me, but I started thinking, okay, better narrow it down because
Right.
So I narrowed it down, and my number one thing is music in the schools.
Oh, yeah.
And how important music education is. And my mother taught me that music is not luxury. It's an essential. And when you think of, it's like sports too, because you have sports programs not so people can play sports, but so they learn how to play on a team, so they learn how to follow directions, how to win and lose with grace, and learn from both of those things. And the same with the arts. And you take the arts out of the school, and it's usually the schools that need it the most.
Yeah.
And that's my passion. That's what I want to throw my energy. And I can't wait till we bust out of this COVID thing, because I want to get back into the classrooms with those kids. I used to do a program on the roots of rap for the Archdiocese inner city schools. And that was when I was in my 30s. And that's like 100 years old to a kid in 8th grade or high school.
Right.
And I would walk into an inner city classroom with literally a bag of VHSs, because that was back then.
Wow.
And said, I'm here to talk to you about rap music. And they look at me and they go, what's that old white lady going to tell me about rap music that I want to hear? And I said, it's not going to be rap is crap. It's going to be where it came from, what influenced it, that nothing comes from a vacuum, like what you said earlier, that there's the roots of all these kinds of musics. It's all connected. And by the end of the program, we were having a great time, and they were learning, and they saw Louis Jordan, that video I referred to.
Love it.
Where they saw Louis Jordan, and they flipped out, and they loved it. And I thought, they're learning a lot about history and how things are connected and all that. And then when they get, like, I got an award with Lynn Bramer and Marty Leonard, the three of us, because we support this Foundations of Music group that sends music, builds music programs in schools that don't have them. And for the entertainment that night, they always bring in kids and they'll do a couple of songs and stuff, and it's always very nice. But that night they had 4 young men who wrote a hip hop piece, and their teacher put the beats together, and a poet, black poet, schooled them on how to write lyrics. And they got up there, and the first thing they said, to perform they'd never seen so many white people in their life. And they got up there to perform, and the one kid said, we are scared to death because we've never done this before. Mm-hmm. And when I got up and got the award, and they said, okay, we're out of time, you can't give a speech, I said, no, I got to say this. I was thrilled when I heard him say that, because I knew that once they got through that, they knew they could do anything they worked hard and set their mind to. That's a life lesson that we all learned because we had those opportunities. And now it's time for us to pony up and make sure these kids, have band and orchestra and choir and dance and painting and football and, everything.
All of it, right.
We are letting them down so badly. But they just think back on our own experiences and how even back when, everything was subsidized, the parents still got together, the band booster parents, and raised money, had a bake sale so they could buy new uniforms. Right. It's time for people to step up and do that stuff again, because I know those kids that changed their lives that night. They learned something deep, And I talked for a while to the poet and then their teacher, and we were all ready to get them to come on and on my public affairs talk show and talk about that, because I've had high school kids come in and talk about how poetry clubs saved their life, kept them from suicide, helped them process HIV/AIDS and all kinds of stuff. And I was all ready to bring them on to those 4 kids, and then COVID shut everything down.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, as you know, really important to Chicago a cappella to do everything we can to help kids in schools. And man, it's been a challenge this year, just like everything else.
Oh, it's insane. It's insane. Yeah. But
have,
those kids, I've met some of those kids at your banquets, and they're lovely. They're wonderful kids.
And to have them come back for that What's Going On video, that was such a thrill, because sometimes we're not always in touch with them after they graduate high school as much as we want to be.
Right.
And to see them come back and kind of shine a little bit was exciting. I mean, we are finding ways to be in the schools this year, but of course it's all virtual.
Well, sometimes the kids aren't in the schools.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah. But, well, people should get online though and see that later on after we're done. But check it out, What's Going On, and check out your other videos too. You guys do great stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, looking at the performance videos that we're enjoying tonight, the thing that strikes me in addition to the music being great and you being great, is being in front of an audience, all those people in the same room reacting and laughing and clapping. And, we're missing that.
And did you notice that people laughed at different things in Oak Park than they did in Naperville? I mean, you go into a different audience. Every audience is different.
That's right. Yeah. Every performance is a little different. And, but I mean, you and I were talking about this earlier, that the importance of music in general in people's lives, and certainly for kids, but for all of us. But it's almost like with the isolation we're all facing this year with COVID, it's almost more important, to keep this all going.
Oh yeah. Well, my co-workers at XRT went through an amazing year because they were doing shows from their closets on their cell phones. They were basically talking into their cell phone, sending it to Chris, who was behind the board at the station. He would put it in the system, get the songs, and then that's how they did it. And I was right. Boy, I retired just in time. But I can't imagine what that was like. And they were so spot on, and they were talking to people and just kind of comforting them and helping them through. And the relationship between disc jockey and the audience that we talked about earlier went even deeper.
Yeah.
And I've been a little frustrated not being able to, other than Breakfast with the Beatles, to, do my share. I had just started this thing on Facebook, this Song of the Day thing, and went deeper in it than I ever thought I would, but talking about how music is helping us process this and sanity, not the isolation, the disruption from what gives us joy, and most importantly, the deaths that we're surrounded with. Between COVID and cancer, it's sometimes relentless. You go through a month where you get one a week, and you just reeling, and you can't go to the wake, you can't go to the funeral, you can't hug your loved ones. And this is why I was taken, like just this past week, I did the In Paradisum from Fauré Requiem, and over 10,000 people have logged on and listened to that and gotten what I wrote about it, how it just really, it's something that heals your soul and something connects us, even when we can't connect. We're connected that way. And music, I think people have really turned to music and binge watching The Crown and all kinds of stuff to sustain themselves, to get through this.
I mean, it is a human connection, even if you're not connected to other people physically. You do connect through music, I think.
Yeah, and music brings back memories, and it makes you happy sometimes, and even the blues. I always tell people, I said, nobody leaves a blues club depressed. There's something healing about singing about what's giving you pain.
Yeah.
There's something healing. Yeah.
We do have one more sort of medley to share. And this was the last set on the formal concert program 5 years ago. And I won't try to to explain why, because you do so. I remember when I saw the set list that you and Patrick had finally come up with and narrowed it down and figured out what you're going to include and what you're not going to be able to include. And this was, the last thing on the concert, sort of the pinnacle. And I scratched my head and I thought, boy, I don't get it. Why? And then I understood why, because you explained it so beautifully.
Oh, thank
So
you.
let's.
Before we jump, can I add one thing?
Of course.
When we did the second part, I remember we were back at Ann Sather's and we were talking about what can we do to close this one.
Yeah.
And we had to go away and think about it, because you go through the 70s, what song, and it didn't have to be from the 70s, but what song. And I came up with it one day and you guys went crazy and said, yes, yes, yes. And it was Lady Gaga, Born This Way.
Right.
And you connect that with David Bowie in the early 70s singing Changes right around the time. In fact, in that concert, I talked about playing it on the radio for the 1000th time. And at the same time, seeing CNN on the screen with the sound down and watching the kids from Parkland, the shooting, right after the shooting. And they said they didn't want tears and prayers and thoughts and all that stuff and teddy bears. They wanted action. And just as I'm playing David Bowie singing "And These Children That You Spit On," and it just came together like, oh my God. And then Lady Gaga, I heard a kid on CNN on a town hall on bullying talk about how that song saved his life. And I thought, that's what this is about. This music has saved people's lives.
Yep.
And it's taken them back from the brink. It's connected them to themselves and to others. And when you guys sang Born This Way, it was hard for me not to just start crying, and the singers really got behind it. And it just seemed to be on paper, it wouldn't look like, why would you do that?
Right.
But it really worked, because it
did.
showed how all this music we've been listening to not only entertained us and not only is the soundtrack of our lives, but it changed us in a good way. And it sometimes saved us when we've been depressed, when we've been brokenhearted, when we've mourned, when we are overwhelmed with school and everything else. Getting up in your bedroom and putting your record player on, or turning on the radio and hearing your DJ make you feel better.
Yep.
It's survival music. It really is.
It is. It's about more than the music, for sure.
So sorry, I just wanted to add that, because that ties in with what we're going to see here too.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's take a look. This is we won't give it away. Let's just look at it.
Yeah.
The tricky thing is, though, how do we wrap up one of the most exciting and influential periods of music in our history? Since this is music that made us dance, that made us fall in love, that made us march for justice, the obvious choice is Sly and the Family Stone, a band that did all the above, a band that helped us transition from the 1960s to the 70s, a band that personified the utopian dream of the 60s, a band that was racially mixed, black, white, and brown. It was a band that featured not one but two women, not the chick singer up front or the backup singers, but two instrumentalists who could sing as well, or who could tell you to get up and dance to the music, or could remind us that we've got to live together. Okay, rock and soul music in the 1960s was more than just pop music. It was an agent of change. In my class once, I was telling them how amazing it was to come of age in the midst of this music. One of my students said she wished she'd grown up in the 60s. I joked that then she'd be old like me. And without hesitation, she said it'd be worth it. She was right. It was magic. To go in 10 years from itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini to stand. Sly nailed it. Malcolm X often quoted the adage, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. These lyrics by Sly and the Family Stone would be as relevant today at a Black Lives Matter rally as they were in 1969. This was our manifesto. This sums up what we learned in the 60s and told us where we needed to go in the next decade. Stand. In the end, you'll still be you. One that's done all the things you set out to do. Stand. There's a cross for you to bear. Things to go through if you're going anywhere. Stand for the things you know are right. It's the truth that the truth makes them so uptight. Stand. All the things you want are real. You have to complete and there is no deal. Stand. Stand. Stand.
Stand, stand, in the end you'll still be you, one that's done all the things you set out to do. Stand, there's a cross for you to bear, things to go through if you're going anywhere. Truth, now the truth makes them so tight. Stand, all the things what are real, they are real. You have you to complete, and there is no need. Everybody stand, stand, stand. Everybody stand, stand. Sometimes I'm right and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in the songs. The butcher, the banker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in. I am everyday people. Yeah, yeah. There is a blue one, I can't accept the green one for living with the fat one. Trying to be a skinny one, different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on, and Scooby-Dooby-Dooby. Ooh, shop, shop, we got to live, shop, shop. There is a blue one who can't accept the green one for living with the bad one. Trying to be a skinny one, different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on, and Scooby-Dooby-Dooby. Ooh, shop, shop, we got to live, shop, shop. Ah, and everyday people. Yeah, yeah. Da 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 listen to music all night long. Everyday people, they'll sing a sad song. Thank you for the party, but I could never stay. Many things is on my mind. Words is in the way. Thank you for letting me be myself again. Thank you. Thank you for letting me be myself again. I wanna thank you.
See, it was perfect.
It really was. You nailed it.
Oh, that's
You
my
nailed
job.
it.
That's
Yeah.
my job. That's
It
my
was
job. Yeah.
just
Oh, they
great
were
music.
wonderful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, we do actually have one more
Right.
song,
Right. Can I
and
just
it's
say though,
of course.
before Patrick, genius. I miss you, Patrick, and I miss all these singers. I want to think of something else I can do with you guys. I want to do something else.
Yep.
And I just it blows me away how great it is. But now I forget what I was going to say because I got so excited. But there was something else I wanted to. Oh, I know. We should do this for the second concert. You know, the second one we did
Yeah,
sometime.
yeah.
Because there was one time at Hyde Park, you comped all my students, so there were like
Oh, that's
15 kids
right.
there for my class, and there were a couple times when I'd say something, and you could hear a little pocket of kids laughing really hard.
Right.
You know, like they go, "Oh, that she's right. Yeah, she does say that."
Yeah.
Crazy person, but no, but people should check out and see, you know, they should buy the sponsorship so they can watch the whole concert, because then they get to see you sing I Got My Mojo Working. And
Right.
and how many dollars was it?
It's $20.
$20. I would pay $20 just to see you sing I Got My Mojo Working again. And it just don't work on you, you know. And but the whole concert too. But I hope people pony up a little bit. I know it's been a hard, let me do the commercial for you. It's been a hard time economically on everybody, but some people have gotten through this easier than others. And arts organizations like yourself are bleeding. You know, they need cash to keep this going. And so I really appreciate people coming tonight and joining us. But I hope that if you're able, you can just come up with some cash and know you've helped not only great singers continue to perform, but the stuff you do with the kids in the schools. It's
Thanks.
very important. Very important.
Thank you, Terry.
Sure.
That's great, and we definitely are looking forward to finding ways to work with you again. Just reminding me what a joy it was to be on the same
Oh, it
stage
was
as
so
you in
much
front of an
fun.
audience. Man, that was fun.
And I miss the singers too. They're really lovely people. We've
And
had
as you
so
say,
much fun.
Patrick's work on this concert
Oh,
again
yeah.
just kind of reminds me, you know, one of the ways that he solved that problem of how do we fit all this music in one concert is he created these medleys. So, you know,
Yes.
you didn't have to pick just one song by Sly and the Family Stone.
Right.
You picked
Right.
3 of them and sort of put them together, and that was all his genius to make that.
Yes.
To make
And
that
now
work.
thank you for letting me be myself again. It's like our ending theme song because we
Right.
use it again in the second.
Totally. Yeah.
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 It's
It worked
great.
so well.
Yeah.
Well, it is a little funny to me that we've gone this whole, you know, hour plus and we haven't mentioned or had any music by the Beatles.
Oh, yeah. I
So,
remember
I
that.
mean, it's
Yeah.
a little weird. So, you know, you've spent much of your life sort of celebrating and studying and sharing the music of the Beatles. And I know it's not fair to ask you this, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Oh.
You know, sort of as we wrap up,
Uh-huh.
why the Beatles? Like, what can you talk about their place in
Oh.
music
Yeah.
history?
How much
really?
time do you have?
Oh, well, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You need another 3 hours,
yeah.
probably.
Yeah, probably, but I'll give you the short version. Yeah, I've thought about it before. No, well, the Beatles are what gave me a path in life. And 2 years ago, I got to meet Ringo Starr. And I'd met him in passing before, but I hate that kind of stuff. I hate that. Oh, I've got all your records, Mr. Starr, you know. And I've interviewed Paul so many times, he acts like we're old friends, and I know we're not. I have a reality check every time, but he's the nicest man, and I'm sincerely nice. But Ringo, my boss, you know, Greg was so great. He said, "I want you to go backstage." And I go, "I hate going backstage unless I have a reason because I don't like to schmooze like that. It's really kind of creepy." And there are people in line waiting to say, "Hi, Ringo, I love you,"
Right.
you know. And he said, "No, you're going to do it." And so here, what they set up. They set me up because I walked in thinking, "Oh God, I'm going to be with this long line of hangers-ons, and he's going to be bored." So he was standing there by himself, waiting for me, walking in the door, and I was stunned because I didn't expect that. And here they told him who they were going to meet. They built it up, and the guy left me alone with him. We were alone for, I don't know, I can't tell you, it felt like days, but and the first thing I thought, what am I going to say to him? And he said, so you're the Beatle lady. And I said, uh-oh, call security, I'm busted. Yeah, I'm the Beatle lady. And he said, give me a hug. So I hugged him.
Oh.
And I thought, okay. And then I said, well, now that I've got you here, let me thank you for letting me be myself again, for fighting myself, for being a sophomore in high school, seeing them on the Ed Sullivan Show, like so many millions of other kids, and just thinking, oh my God, what was that? It wasn't just a new band. And I wondered what it was that attracted me so much. Because, you know, I loved music. In fact, I didn't think I was going to like them. I kind of resisted them because I thought it was going to be like four Pat Boones, you know, white guys covering R&B songs.
Oh, yeah.
And I really wasn't into that. As you can tell by the concert, but no, I watched it like everybody else, and I went away from it like, oh my God, what? And I couldn't put it in words. Well, years later, when VHSs just came around, because you never got to see it again, they didn't show it again.
Yeah.
A listener sent me a bootleg copy of all three of those Ed Sullivan shows in '64, and I remember sitting in my basement with the TV, watching that, thinking, you know, it was the first time I'd seen it since then. You see tiny little clips and stuff. And I thought, what was it? And there was a moment when George and John made eye contact and just broke into grins and then went right back into it. And it wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't one of these things where, you know, they're going in unison, they look at each other and smile like, ee. It was like one of these like, oh my God, can you believe this happened? And the camaraderie, the four of them had a unique camaraderie in their stage presence and off stage, that everybody wanted to be part of that. That's why I think everybody joined a band and stuff, not just to get attention or get girls, whatever they were saying. Oh yeah, get more dates if I'm in a band. Yeah, that's part of it. But I think the bigger part is we connected with something that was real, that wasn't show business.
Yeah.
And then their story, and I told Ringo, I said, you know, I heard your story about how the improbability of four guys coming out of Liverpool, when even in London wouldn't want to hear from Liverpool, let alone the United States of America.
Right.
And I said, so that when I saw a picture in 1965, I remember I was in study hall with my geography textbook open and a teen magazine inside. And I saw a picture of Jim Stagg, disc jockey, interviewing Ringo Starr. And it's like one of those moments where the light bulb goes off. And I thought, if I got to be a disc jockey, I could meet the Beatles.
Oh my God.
And that's where it started. And I listened to the radio all the time. I loved music. I loved all the top 40. I kept track of what, you know, I was a nerd.
Yeah,
and and I listened to B-sides and I looked to see who wrote the songs and stuff. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if I was a disc jockey? Then I could do this, you know, and I wanted to work in Dayton, Ohio. That was my goal. And so anyway, I just started thinking about it. I didn't tell anybody because I knew I'd get laughed out of the room, because I didn't stop and think that, well, there weren't any women on the air.
Right.
But I thought, well, I'll be the first. And not knowing what I was getting myself into. And
you were in some ways.
Yeah, in a lot of places. And I went to Elmhurst College and spent 4 magnificent years there and worked at the campus radio station. But even there, ran into some sexism from my peers. But it kind of prepared me for what was going to happen. And then when I graduated and I had my air check and all that stuff, and I would send it out, and, you know, they wouldn't even listen to it because they said, we can't put a woman on the air. And the station I ended up at first, WGLD, was progressive, and they had a woman. They said, we can't have 2 women, be reasonable. So, you know, but how much can you do on typing? Like how many words per minute? And I typed my way into a career. Wow. And I did a lot. I paid a lot of dues I shouldn't have had to pay. I ate a lot of crap that I shouldn't have. You know, I got overlooked for, okay, I didn't make the money I should have made, but if I had to do over again, I would do the same thing, because I had a dream and I followed it. And I told Ringo, I said, thank you, because you put me on a path that I never would have thought of. And it led to so many other things. And I tell my students, if you have a dream, don't let anybody talk you out of it. You know, you might not even end up doing exactly what you think you want to do now, but you'll find something that you wouldn't have found if you just stayed home.
Right.
And the dream's not going to come to you. You have to go to it. And I told Ringo, I said, anytime a group of kids of any age invite me to come tell them that, I will tell them. Even like we were talking about COVID and music. I was on Zoom one night with students last spring, and I was looking at them, and they looked so depressed. They were like, this is the worst time to be in college. It's just awful. All the great stuff. I remember I learned a lot of stuff outside the classroom.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not getting those opportunities right now. And I feel really bad for them. And the ones that are graduating, I said, you're going into show business. You're going into a crazy, wacky thing anyway. And you'll be competing with people that are trying to get their jobs back. I said, but remember this. Remember not to give up on yourself. And remember that it's similar to what I faced when I graduated, because they wouldn't even consider me for the job, let alone me compete for the job. Yeah. And then once I got on, then, oh, she's good for a girl. Jeez, it was just horrible. But I would do it again because I got to do things I didn't even anticipate. And I told Ringo, I said, you put me on a path and you gave me a dream, and here I am telling you about this in, what was it, 2019? And, from 1964. And he started telling me his dreams. Of course, I knew them already. Because
right. Yeah.
I'm a stalker. Yeah, I know. I
stalking him for 30 years, 40 years.
I remember one time I was with Paul, and somebody, I was with Paul, and somebody handed him a picture of the Beatles to autograph, and they said, where was that taken? And he looked at it and goes, I don't remember. I said, wasn't that where you guys would go for a smoke outside back of Abbey Road? Yeah, that's it. I went, oh God, call security. I remember your life better than what Paul says. When he forgets the lyrics, he looks out in the audience and reads lips, because everybody's singing or like I pointed out in Classic Encounter once, that he played Red Square in Moscow, and it was thousands of people. It was just a whole square is full of people. First time a Beatle ever. It used to be illegal to buy Beatle records over there, and here he is singing all these songs in English to people that don't speak English, and the camera shows, and everybody's singing all the words. Right. And when he's singing "Let It Be," people are weeping because they never thought they would be in the same space with the Beatle hearing them, and they were all mouthing the words. Wow. And to me, that's a miracle. That's just amazing. So I got to tell Ringo, and that's what the Beatles did for me. And the Beatles did that for a lot of people, a lot of musicians. It was an energy thing. We talked about the atom bomb before, it really sparked a whole generation to have a different idea of what to expect in life. Yeah. And what we could expect from music, and what we can expect, like, when you look at an album cover, it used to just be a picture of some artist or a tree or something. And then you look at Sgt. Pepper, Revolver, and
the White Album.
Or the White Album, which was definitely a response to Sgt. Pepper, the busyness and color. That's just like them. Like, okay, we're going to rest on our laurels. We're going to do something completely different.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that, Ringo inspired, and the Beatles inspired you and so many others. And then, you've just kept that going for so many years for so many other people and inspire us. So it's like this wonderful chain that just keeps.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I remember when John Lennon was shot, and I had to go on the air that next morning, and I got a slew of letters. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Hundreds of letters. And one woman said, I'm in college, I'm studying radio, and the two big influences on my life, so the three big was John Lennon, and then the two living ones is Joni Mitchell and you. And she said, I'm studying radio because of you. And I can't write to John Lennon. So, and if I write to Joni Mitchell, she'll never see it. So I'm writing to you to say thank you. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. And my life has been so rich with people's stories about how playing a certain song at a certain time by sheer luck was the right song at the right time. Yeah. That really helped.
You never know who you're going to
never know. Touch. You never know. And Ringo didn't know when he was drumming in this rock band that he would be in a position where he's hearing this old woman saying, oh my God, you gave me a pass.
Right.
and he went right into it. Yeah, well, I wanted to be a country and western singer in Houston, Texas. And I said, yeah, I know, I read that. But and then he hugged me a second time, and I thanked him, because and then not just being rock stars, but the fact that they went on a path to basically preach peace and love.
Yeah.
That's the mantra for all four of them: peace and love, peace and love. What pop singers ever thought of doing that?
Right.
And that just got me to think in different terms. Like, okay, you're on the radio, you could be a disc jockey and go blah, 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 or you could say something that might resonate with somebody.
Yeah.
So they got me to think in those terms, and wow.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the fact that you shared it with us and continue to share it with us is a great gift.
Well, it's a privilege for me to be able to do that. Thanks. And you know who I do it for? Well, not only you guys, but my mom, because I learned from my mom that I saw the lives that she touched and the lives she changed and opportunities she made for these people to sing.
Yeah.
And even if they weren't great singers, even if they could barely read music, they were welcome to sing.
Yeah.
And I watched her in action, and I saw how she used music to change lives. And she told me, said, music changes lives. And later I said, and after being in Chicago for a few years and seeing things happen around this stuff, I think music saves lives too. It really does.
There's nothing like, what your mom did is particularly choral music. I mean, that's one of the reasons actually that I love the arrangement of this. So this was the encore. This last song we're going to share, this was actually the encore. And one of the things I love about it is that it kind of bridges the gap between, this rock and soul that we'd been investigating the whole night and sort of celebrating, and the choral, sort of a cappella choral tradition that's usually what we do, because it's a really sort of unusual, slow and haunting arrangement by Patrick of kind of an early Beatles classic, and sort of transforms it. But to me, I just loved how it kind of brought those two threads together and said, it's all the same, it's rock and soul, it's choral music, whatever it is, country, jazz, you name it. But it's all great music.
Yes.
So let's send people off with that. But I just can't thank you enough, Terri, for being with us tonight. This was so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be myself again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And of course, everybody, keep tuning into Breakfast with the Beatles every Sunday morning from 8 to 10.
Thank you.
Check out Terri's blog and her Facebook posts, which are funny and moving and deep and inspiring.
We're soon going to put it on regular website for people that aren't on Facebook.
Oh, even better. Fantastic.
Working on that. Yeah. Thanks.
Great.
But thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Again for being with us.
Thanks for letting me work with you and your singers.
It was
meant a lot to me.
And we will do it again.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, and good night, everybody. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Peace and love.
Bye-bye.
Close your eyes and I'll kiss you.